Hi, I'm a Possum and I find garbage. Today's garbage is Elio, the latest family movie from Pixar, which no one is going to the theater to watch because the dozen or so people who are interested all know it's going to be on Disney Plus in a month or two. Elio had the worst opening box office of any Pixar movie ever. Maybe releasing it on the same day as 28 Years Later was a mistake. Now you might think, oh, those are two totally different audiences. A kid's movie's not competing with a gory horror film. But let's be real. The only people going to see Pixar movies at theaters at this point are adults. That's why the only hit in the past 5 years was Inside Out 2, a sequel that came out 9 years after the original and had nostalgia to bank on. It's the same thing with the Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your Dragon remakes. Kids these days don't watch movies. They watch Skibidi Toilet and Chinese psyop videos that give them body dysmorphia. That's why every big family movie has to bank on nostalgia now. Today's kids don't have the attention span to watch a 98-minute cartoon about a kid befriending an alien and the art style of a Grubhub commercial. And yes, I'm fully aware that I'm not the first one to make that comparison. And that's another thing, the hideous art style that Pixar keeps using. I want to say it started with The Good Dinosaur, but no, it's actually that stereotypical CalArts art style that everyone hates, but in 3D. In 2D, it's already become the default art style of American cartoons and represents utter banality. Everyone in the world hates this art style. Everyone. Everyone hates it because it's a non-style. It has no character. It has no appeal. It's this inoffensive, soft around the edges, brand safe, make everything cute, don't scare the kids, artless advertising mascot trash. And we all know Pixar can do better. None of the Pixar movies which have used this style have made money, so I don't know why they keep using it, other than maybe they've decided to embrace the slot factory mentality and just do what's easy. If you've never seen Luca, Turning Red, or Elio, and I showed you screenshots from all of them, you would think they were all from the same movie. It's like Pixar is just going through the motions and doing what's easy, and that's sad because Pixar used to be pioneers in 3D animation technology, making massive leaps with each new release. And no two Pixar movies looked alike because everything was new. But they don't do anything new anymore. Everything they make now is either a sequel which uses the proven art styles of their predecessors, or if they do make something original, they use the most bland and characterless art style they can get away with. I'm surprised they don't just do stick figures at this point. Even the story is bland, it being about a kid who can't connect with a parental figure. Gee, I've never seen that in a Disney movie before. At least it doesn't have bad morals like some other recent Disney movies. I mean, aside from this weird thing where they make clones who are apparently intelligent but only exist to serve a specific purpose and then self-destruct when they're no longer needed, that's kind of messed up. But Elio actually has the opposite message of the Lilo and Stitch remake, and that the mother figure doesn't resent the kid she's stuck taking care of and doesn't give them up for the sake of her career. This one's about the importance of family and the love between parents and their kids, which is of course not new territory for Pixar, who already addressed this theme much better in older movies like The Incredibles. Again, they're just going through the motions. This other reviewer, Greg Owens, said it felt like a Netflix movie in the sense that it feels like something you would put on as background noise while you do something else. Because Netflix literally tells their filmmakers to make movies dumb on purpose for the people watching at home who aren't paying attention. Another reviewer, Jester Bell, pointed out that nearly every shot in the movie is composed that the action happens in the center of the frame, and speculated this was to make it easier for influencers to crop it for TikTok, hoping for free viral marketing. I didn't even notice this when I watched the movie, so I took the trailer and cropped it to 9:16, and yes, almost every shot fits the subject in that frame without having to recompose. Why even make the movie have this wide 2.4 CinemaScope aspect ratio if you're only going to use the middle quarter of the frame? And even though I didn't notice it until someone pointed it out, this might be part of my problem with Elio. I struggle to even think of things to say about the actual movie outside of how it relates to Pixar in general, because the movie just sort of washed over me and didn't engage me or give me anything to think about. And it didn't even make me look around the frame because almost every shot was composed the same way. This movie asks nothing of its audience. It's a totally passive, brain-dead watching experience, like a dumb-on-purpose Netflix movie or TikTok video, and this makes for an utterly forgettable experience. And that's the worst thing a movie can be, forgettable. A bad but memorable movie at least gives you something to talk about and learn from, and maybe even laugh at. But a movie you don't even remember seeing might as well not exist. Sometimes I'll go see a movie with the intention of writing a review, but then it ends up having so little impression, either good or bad, that I end up having nothing to say, so that I just don't review it. See, I'm not one of these guys who's like, oh, the acting was pretty good, it's got some good special effects, I like the part where the guy did the thing, 7 out of 10. No, I like to have a thesis, like some kind of bigger idea upon which to base a review, or at least a list of major bullet points I can talk about at length. Elio would be one of those movies that I see and then just forget about if it wasn't a Pixar movie, because that brand carries with it a certain prestige. For 30 years, Pixar movies were the family movies. They could be relied upon for their quality, not just for their production value, but for their stories. Timeless stories which resonate with children and adults alike. Stories which can make you laugh and cry. Stories you could grow up with and look back at fondly when you're older. But those days are over. I mean, yeah, Inside Out 2 was successful, but that was an exception. And it only succeeded because it was a sequel. Every new and original thing Pixar has done for the past 5 years has been a failure, or at least severely underperformed. Yeah, some of that can be blamed on the pandemic, but we're out of that now. People flock to the theater to see the Mario movie and Despicable Me 4, so animated films can still make money. But Illumination, of all companies, should not be outperforming Pixar. I shouldn't ever go to the theater to see a Pixar movie and find an empty auditorium. But the difference between Mario and Despicable Me 4 and Elio is title recognition. I think we're at the point where if an IP wasn't established at least 10 years ago, then it has little to no hope of gaining momentum. The ship has sailed on new franchises getting a foothold in popular culture. I mean, yeah, we still get these rare exceptions once in a while, but that's what they are, exceptions. Considering how much it costs to bring your whole family to a theater these days, a movie really needs to drum up interest to have any hope of getting people to see it. And that's why everything is so dependent on nostalgia and title recognition, the two things Elio doesn't have. It's tempting to think that Disney never had any faith in the project because they've done next to nothing to promote it. And it's true that I don't recall seeing a single advertisement for Elio outside of the trailers that played before a movie at a theater, which, again, families aren't going to. I think I may have seen an ad for Elio Happy Meal toys on the kiosk at McDonald's, but that's about it. Imagine being a phytoplankton swimming around in the Tethys Ocean 300 million years ago, and you have no idea that your fossilized remains would one day become the plastic in an Elio Happy Meal toy. But if Disney didn't have any faith in the project, why'd they spend so much time and money on it? This movie's officially reported budget was $150 million, but there are reports saying it actually cost closer to $300 million after being delayed for over a year due to extensive rewrites after director Adrian Molina was moved off the project to work on Coco 2, and they replaced him with Domi Shi and Madeline Sharafian, the people responsible for that garbage Turning Red, who proceeded to trash nearly all of the work that had already been done and turned it into something totally removed from Molina's original vision, which you can see if you compare the teaser trailer to the final trailer. They changed the tone to make it more comedic, they changed the main character's motivation, they changed the comedy relief side character into the main villain, among other things, and made Molina's personal story that he based on his experiences growing up feeling like an outsider into their own personal therapy session. About the only thing that kept was the core premise of a kid getting abducted by aliens and convincing them he's the leader of Earth. Now, it's not unusual for movies to undergo massive changes during production. It happened with Zootopia and Frozen, and even Pixar's own Ratatouille. But they generally don't change the director and completely retool the entire story when it's already halfway finished, and end up throwing out over $100 million worth of work. Now it's the Pixar executives who are turning red. You know, I could go on about Pixar and their decline, but the biggest problem with a movie like Elio, where I have nothing to say about it, is how much reaching I have to do to get a video to over 8 minutes without it being obvious that I'm just padding it. I could talk about the acting, which is fine. I could talk about the animation, which as I said is competent but bland and uninteresting. I could talk about the music, which I guess is pretty good, but that certainly isn't enough to save it. So that just leaves the story. I guess I'll just explain what happens in the movie since I'm the only one in the entire universe who's seen it. Elio is a kid who lives with his aunt because his parents are dead, and he wants to get abducted by aliens because he feels like he doesn't fit in on Earth since he has no friends. And that's probably because he's an obnoxious little prick who steals radios. When the aliens do abduct him, they bring him to a place called the Communiverse, where representatives from all the advanced races of the universe meet to do whatever. Elio convinces them he's the leader of Earth and ends up getting roped into negotiating with a space warlord named Grygon, and ends up befriending his son Glorden, who doesn't get along with his dad. Glorden pretends to be Elio's hostage so Grigon doesn't blow up the communiverse. They screw around for a while, then come up with a plan to trick Grigon with a clone of Glorden so he doesn't have to go back home and start training to become a warlord. When this backfires, the aliens predictably find out Elio is not the leader of Earth, and send him back while Glorden accidentally flies a stolen spaceship to Earth and gets captured by the military. After the second act's low point, Elio and his aunt team up to rescue Glorden and take him back to Grigon to stop him from blowing everyone up. But Glorden is dying from being on Earth for too long because it's too cold for him. So Grigon bursts out of his robot suit, which is a big taboo for his species, to warm up Glorden with his worm silk stuff. Then Grigon accepts Glorden not wanting to be like him and decides not to blow everyone up. Then Elio goes back to Earth, having decided that living with his aunt is okay. It's a really simple story, which is not a problem in and of itself, but it's not at all challenging. You look at a movie like The Lion King, where a kid has to learn to cope with death and guilt and accept responsibility in spite of it, or you look at The Hunchback of Notre Dame, where faith can lead to hope in the face of seemingly insurmountable adversity, but can also lead to delusions of moral infallibility which then become justification for atrocity. Or even Pixar's own Up, where a character overcomes a lifetime of regret and finds new meaning in his old age. And you realize modern Hollywood subscribes to the idea that kids can't handle heavy subjects. So on top of the bland, safe art style, Elio also has bland, safe writing. Elio has no soul. It's the definition of paint by numbers. And the tragic thing is, I don't think it started that way. Adrian Molina envisioned Elio as a personal story based on his childhood, growing up on a military base with no friends his own age, and not finding a sense of belonging until he went to Cal Arts and met like-minded people. But some empty suit with a comb-over told him to go work on Coco 2 because they knew that would make more money. Then Elio got corrupted into generic kids movie sludge. I mean, it still had the same art style, so I'm not convinced it would have had any soul even before then, but still, knowing that, this makes Elio a manifestation of a man's broken dreams. It's disgusting. So when you see people who say things like, oh, you always say you want original movies, but then you don't go see them, and they don't make any money, so they stop making them. You can kindly remind them that we want to see good original movies, and something being original doesn't automatically make it good. Alright, that's enough. Here's a challenge for my audience. Come up with an idea for a kids movie. And don't forget to like this video, leave a comment for the algorithm, subscribe if you're not already. If you are, check my channel for other videos you may have missed, since YouTube doesn't always tell you when I upload. Send me your fan art and support me on Patreon, the link's in the pinned comment. Bye.